Welcome to our Friday class. Today we're going to talk about communication and the way that Mercury is moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius. I'm not going to have slides for this class, but I did want to start out with the chart of the moment, our 10 o'clock start time. And you can see that we just had the new moon in Scorpio early this morning while many of us were sleeping. And a new moon always represents a new start. And this new start is in the sign of Scorpio, which suggests depth, intensity, maybe complications, looking for what might be hidden underneath, hidden motivations. Maybe for some, it represents control and manipulation or dealing with others, attempted control and manipulation. But at the highest frequency of Scorpio, we're always attuned to the fact that we're connecting to wounding, we're connecting to challenges that originate in this life or past lives. And we have the capacity through scorpionic process to face those issues honestly, with integrity, and transmute and transform the energy into power and integrity. And that power ultimately is soul level power. It is the power to walk through fire, basically, come up through the ashes and live a soul-centered destiny life. So a lot of times when people hear the word power on this planet, one just automatically is tuned to power out of control, egoic power, negative power, uh, coercion. And really, Scorpio can often represent the evil and challenges that exist when humans do not have consciousness. But at our highest level of working with Scorpio, we are working with the soul's mandate to operate powerfully in the world from a soul-centered perspective. This is true for Scorpio, and this is also true for the planet Pluto, which rules or is affiliated with the sign Scorpio. These days, many modern astrologers are trying to move the word rulership or ruled by out of the language a little bit because it's not exactly true. I mean, Pluto doesn't make Scorpio do things, which would be implied by rulership. Pluto, though, is the planet that is connected to and affiliated with scorpionic type processes. Pluto is the vehicle within each one of us and also connecting to the collective unconscious that is about connecting to these deep hidden wounds. Wherever Pluto is in your chart natally suggests that this is the area of life that you were previously wounded in, and that you are charged in this life with fearlessly, again and again and again, connecting into that wound. And what the wound holds is all of the repressed emotions from the karma: fear, shame, pain, rage, anger, powerlessness, power out of control, memories when we were part of the problem. And we all really have to face that. None of us just got born and have lived pure lives our whole time. We go through an incarnational process and we harm people, we harm ourselves. Pluto carries all of that too, the self-hatred, the self-doubt, the guilt and the shame for things that we did. And we have to bring our greatest level of compassion into the mix to forgive ourselves for things we've done and to remember that through human life circumstances, we find ourselves in impossible situations. We find ourselves in situations where we are wounded to such a degree that we willingly do harmful things. And we're also coerced many times where just to survive, maybe we have to do something that we wouldn't necessarily choose. Pluto in our chart holds those memories and then draws us again and again to remember by the events that happen in this life. As Pluto's moving around the chart, it digs deep into every place. And you know that it takes about 2 to 3 years for it to travel 1 degree. It goes over the degree and back and over, sometimes several times. Maybe if we're kind of lucky, it just goes over once and back once and then forward in its retrograde process. But if it's only doing it that 3 pass forward, backward, forward, then we have to work harder and faster around the transformation and the excavation, which is a great Pluto word. The excavation where we dig deep and we draw in that buried shadow operating pattern, the things we do around our power or lack of power that we're unconscious of. As Pluto is transiting around, it's digging deep in each place, and then that starts to release the buried energy in the natal Pluto, and we start to rise up into our true power. Right now, as I think most of you know, Pluto is in the very last couple of weeks of being in the sign of Capricorn. This is final exam time. This is writing your dissertation. What have you been learning about Pluto and your need for power and living a soul-centered life? Connected to your part of chart that is Capricorn in nature, which already says that this is a part of your chart where you are building something. And now to have this new moon in Scorpio and Mercury in Scorpio now, as we're heading into these last couple of weeks. Pluto will go into Aquarius on November 19th. This new moon starting today is lasting in terms of its strongest impact for 2 weeks. Then we'll have the full moon for November, and then it'll wane and we'll have our next new moon in Sagittarius. I thought it was interesting to consider today what this new moon is about and what kinds of communications or thought processes we might be going through related to the Mercury. You can see that this new moon has a strong trine configuration to Saturn in Pisces. We've had Neptune in Pisces since about 2011, and that has been this beautiful downflow, this pouring of Piscean energy, of unconditional love, bliss, spirituality, intuition, compassion. And when I was speaking a minute ago about Pluto and the need to forgive ourselves, Neptune's all about forgiveness. It is all about forgiveness, oneness, surrender, unconditional love. It really embodies the highest expression of spiritual principles. You know, the truth behind Christianity is very Neptune Pisces, not necessarily the religion that's been organized and how that's been corrupted to some degree. And, you know, there you see Pluto and power and corruption. And those two planets are working us very strongly for 100 years since around the Second World War. Now, Saturn has come into the picture in March of 2023 and asks us to structure and become diligent and mature and build something about the Pisces part of our chart. And I was really feeling that today, in my yoga practice. And I was just thinking about how beneficial that Saturn urge is right now to be mature, to work a little harder. I time myself. I don't usually time myself. I usually just do as much yoga as I feel like, and I scatter it through the day. And it's different than at one point when I was much more religious about getting up in the morning and having a very, specific process that I went through. But today I was more inclined, and I think it has something to do with that new moon in a trine to Saturn in Pisces. I felt more inclined to give myself a time period, a limit to live up to, something that would push me a little bit more, to be more serious about it, to do the extra. Saturn asks us to do that. It asks us to try a little harder, uh, find something inside of ourselves that does the right thing and not just the easy thing. So that's part of the new moon today, and that's part of Mercury. Mercury represents the part of us that seeks information in order to feel knowledgeable. You can't tell from someone's Mercury whether they are really smart or not. Although other planets and the signs, can give us an idea of the person's style of thinking and communicating. While Mercury is in Scorpio, which it is for a month each year, unless there's retrograde, we have this tendency to think more intensely, to worry about things, uh, fear, anxiety, trepidation will come up with Mercury and Scorpio. We will be afraid we don't have all the information, we're missing something. I can tell you that when I do private sessions with people, the very strong Scorpionic people always get to the end of the session and they want to know what I'm hiding from them. What didn't you tell me that was bad that I really should know? Come on, you can tell me, I can take it. So Mercury in Scorpio wants that. Mercury in Scorpio wants to be honest and face reality intensely. Sometimes Scorpio is too honest, right? There's a ruthless quality to the honesty. It can be hurtful. Someone with a lot of Scorpio can want to tell you things for your own good that, you may not be able to handle. So Mercury in Scorpio has to develop some discernment, some wisdom. And if you think about the medicine for every sign is the sign opposite, Taurus is the sign opposite. And Taurus likes things smooth and steady, non-combative, let things go. No, like give someone a hug, make it easier. Um, have a bite to eat, it's all going to be okay. So a little bit of that Taurus brought into the Scorpio will be part of the medicine right now and for the next couple of days while we're still in this Mercury Scorpio. Then Mercury goes into the sign of Sagittarius. And I wanted to talk about that for today too. And what we're going to do in a few moments is talk about everybody's Mercury and your own experience of Mercury in the sign it's in that can help each one of us understand Mercury's a little bit better. It's always fun to see how people experience a particular planet. It goes beyond what we can just read about in the books. Well, Mercury in Sagittarius is interesting because it's also about truth-telling. Mercury in Scorpio tells the truth, but deep, penetrating. Maybe Mercury in Scorpio is very psychic, intense. But in Sagittarius, it's truth, but it's fiery truth. It's belief-infused truth. It's like, I know what I know. I want the whole world to know about it. It's not so personal. It's not so deep and dark. Sagittarius can be optimistic to an extreme. We call it like unfounded optimism. The desire to sort of stand on a soapbox and say, I believe this. I know this in my heart. I want everybody to embrace this big truth. The opposite sign to Sagittarius is Gemini. And there we have the medicine of learning more, opening your mind. If you think you know the truth, ask 5 other people why they believe what they believe and try somehow to synthesize a more nuanced viewpoint. There's not much nuance in the truth of Sagittarius. And often when one is in a Mercury and Sagittarius period, there is a tendency to believe what we believe and not really listen to others, not really look for alternate viewpoints. So this is going to be an interesting thing for us as we're coming into this election in a few days, where right now with all this Scorpio, we may be, worried about the outcome, no matter, who we're voting for. We're worried. We're seeing the worst. We've got this feeling that there's evil and corruption and bad things are happening behind the scenes. But the moon will move into Sagittarius. Mercury will be in Sagittarius, and we'll start to have even probably more of this big picture sense of ideology, truths that different individuals and groups believe that uh, are not leaving, kind of any room for questioning. And of course, we have Jupiter, the Sagittarian planet, in retrograde phase in Gemini. And its big message is, keep learning more, keep understanding more, keep communicating and synthesizing the information that is coming through. I've talked a lot about the Mars-Pluto opposition, so most of you know a lot about that, and that it is going to be exact on the 3rd of November, but it's pretty much in range all month. It has been in range for a couple of weeks. We feel it as a lot of volatility, anger, resentment, overwhelm, and because Mars is going to do a retrograde in the next couple of months, we will have 3 more times over the next year where Pluto and Mars are exactly opposite each other. But in those 3 times, Pluto will be in Aquarius and Mars will be in Leo. So it'll be a very different flavor around, I would say, this revolutionary progress force that we're in up against Mars in Leo, where there's a certain assertive, aggressive force around Leo kind of energy, and Leo rules royalty. Yes, creative expression, children, fun, things like that. But when we're talking about it in a kind of a more worldview, I would say that Aquarius is the will of the people and Mars is the will of the elite. And I would say, this opposition tells us that we're still in this battle for how this world moves forward in what is fundamentally a very strong Aquarian time. I believe Aquarius will ultimately win because Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years. We're also in a Saturn-Jupiter 20-year cycle since 2020. So there's a lot of cyclical energy about change and progress and evolution, if not revolution. Where this falls in your own personal chart, again, that's where a lot of your inner struggle may be around power and transformation, and up against what you're also drawn toward at this point in time. And finding a balance is always the key. Pluto is also the outlet of a kite. Uh, so it adds extra emphasis to Pluto. Taking the time to meditate about what is underneath, what is empowering you, um, disempowering you. Definitely take some time to process what your fears are, and especially in these next couple of weeks. And I've talked about this before in some other classes, take some time to look at the changes that you've made in your life since 2008, what you have been building, and really stand there and honor the hard work that you have done. We've all been doing a lot of hard transformative work for all these years. So that is what I would like to say as kind of an overview about Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury in Sagittarius, this time period to be thinking about communication. And we'll take this chart down and we'll talk together a little bit more.